Welcome to How to PAM. Let's Talk Linux, the channel that promotes professional computing with free open source software, and we're helping FOSS users find the answer. Today we have a real treat for you. We're going to have some fun with systemd. Systemd is the PID manager for Ubuntu and Linux operating systems, which manages the startup of your Linux operating system. Many people are not familiar with how to work with systemd, and we're going to show you a little bit about that today and create a unit file and get it running. So it'll be a little bit fun. Systemd has folders that you can modify files in right here. etc systemd system on your hard drive, and this is the folder that you can make changes to. Systemd has another folder in another area on your hard drive where it has identical files, but you should not modify these ones. Leave these for the system itself. These ones in lib, systemd system, leave them for the system itself. And if you want to make any modifications, do it to the systemd folder in the etc folder on your hard drive. So let's get started. And to begin with, systemd has a controller which will allow you to control that. If you enter that in help, you will see that there is a bunch of information here that will help you put options into your systemctl command. So you go there with systemctl help. Now, before we actually create a unit file, we should decide on a name, and in order to decide on a name, we need to know what we're going to do with that unit file. So our unit file will be a service file. It has the ending of .service, and it will be to create a sound, to play an audio file at your login screen. But before we do that, let's check systemd to see if it has any files that have a similar name. And we do that by listing unit files, and we could put here all, but that might be a long list. So we could tell it that we want type. The type of file would equal a service file, but then that could still be a fairly long list. Let's see. These are the service files, and it's alphabetical. This is up to C. We go right down to Z. You could see here under the state, some are enabled, some are disabled, and some are static. If we get out of there and add to our line, we could grep that. We could pipe it through grep. So let's grep through login and see what we have here. Here we have a login service. So we don't want to make another login file to match that one, otherwise we'll overwrite it. So let's go ahead and create our unit file. It will be .service. Let's bring up Nano. Let's add a little bit to that login. Tune.service. Let's make a name for our file, login tune, instead of just login, because that already exists. Let's go with login tune.service and say enter to that. Now here we have a text editor. Nano is opened up here, and we're going to start filling out our unit file to create our sound that plays at login. Let's start with a bracket here, and then let's start with unit. That's a capital U. Now, systemd is case sensitive. Matter of fact, it complains about any spelling errors whatsoever. Your names are case sensitive, so remember that. And the first entry in our unit is description. Description equals. This can be something simple that describes what this file does. Audio sound at login. That will work. Now the next thing we want to do is tell our unit file when to get started. And we do that by telling it to start after. After when? After some other files are started. You will notice that systemd here, we can list the type of target files with systemctl list units, type, target. Let's list them. Now you see these targets here. These targets get started, so we can tell our unit file to start after a certain one of these targets is started, and that will give our file a certain place in the startup scheme to come up and play our tune. So I'm going to choose after run level 3. Now run level 3 is a target file that is similar to multi-user target. Now the multi-user target, or run level 3, is when everything is started to the console level, but no GUI, no graphical user interface, but everything is started. So I'm going to tell our file, our unit file, to start after everything is started, but before the graphical user interface is started, because the graphical user interface, which takes our system to run level 5, doesn't start until after the login. So if we start at console level, multi-user level with the console, run level 3, then we're actually starting our file before we log in, and that will work well for us there. Now, if you find you need to adjust your startup of your file, you can do that by giving it another target file to start after. You could put network, and some systems you might have to. Every system might be different. So if run level 3 is not working quite right for you, you could try adding to start after the network is brought up, and that might work. You may need some sound, so you may want to tell it to start after the sound target is brought up. I don't need those on this machine, but each machine is different. So let's go ahead and put in the next section. Now you could add comments in between these sections if you like, as long as they're preceded by the hash. Okay, then you could put a comment in. But we don't need any comments in this little unit file. So let's just open another bracket and put service, because close bracket, capital S for the service area. This is the service area. Now in here we're going to have to choose type, capital T, equals. There are certain types of services. You can study a little bit about systemd to see that. There's a forking type, simple type, which is the default. We're going to use one shot. The one shot type, because this just runs once. That's it. Just runs once at login and then does not run again till log in again. Now we need to tell it when to start and what to start. So we're going to tell it to execute start. Now if you're going to play a file on boot up, you must have a console file player. I have one here. This player is part of the SOX, S-O-X application for working with music files. Make sure you put here the absolute address of your music player. Then give it a sound file. You can have a sound file anywhere. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the absolute address of the Lennox system sounds. I have a file here in the smooth seam that should work there for the play. You'll need to put the correct address in here for your player. Now, if you'd like the system to stay running after boot, then you're going to have to remain after exit. This tells our system, our unit file, to stay active even after it's finished running the sound file. And you could put, systemd is very Boolean friendly, so you could put 1 for yes, or you could put true or false to these expressions, or you could put yes or no. That should work on our service section. Now another section is bracket install, close bracket. Now in this section we have a wanted by section. That will be the multi-user target we're going to put here from this list. Multi-user target is, of course, run level 3 to 5. Now 4 is not used too often. It's free if an administrator wants to use it for something else. But 3 and 5, so multi-user target, it's telling us that our file is wanted by run level 3 and 5. Now remember, it's case sensitive, so wanted has a capital W, by as a capital B. Your expressions afterwards are all lowercase. Now, as I said earlier, by choosing the correct run level or target for starting your unit file will determine when it gets activated within a certain space. But if you wish to refine that a little bit more, you could add in this directive and use the bin sleep and put a few seconds in there, 5, 6, 10, 20, whatever you require. When you boot up and you find out that your tune is playing before the login screen appears or playing late after the login screen appears, you may want to add this directive and go ahead and put some seconds of time in here to slow down or speed up the start of your unit file. So there we have it. We've got unit description, when to start after run level 3, the service, it's a one-shot type. So now we did check and our name for our file is okay. We're not going to overwrite another file that's in there. So let's go ahead and press Control O, enter, and X, and save that. Now if we'd like to see, we could go down here. Before we do that, let's go ahead and restart the daemon, the systemd daemon, so that we can load our file. Now let's go down here and let's run the grep for login again. And here you go. Here is our file in there. And you'll see here it's disabled. Well, that is because we haven't enabled it yet. Now, if we wish to have that file start at boot time, it must be enabled. But before that, let's check our file status. And it tells us that the file is disabled. It's loaded, but it's disabled. When we ran daemon reload, it loaded our file, but it is disabled. So we can enable that by running the command enable our login tune service. Now we could check the status on that again. Now notice, because it was loaded but it was disabled, it has a white dot. So let's go ahead now that we've enabled it, and it tells us that it's enabled now. When we enabled it, it created a link. And this link will make certain that it gets started at boot time. But you'll notice, even though it's enabled, it still has a white dot because it is not running. Now, we're going to start that up. And we do that simply by telling it to start. If everything works well with this file, if you're missing something, it will usually tell you what the error is, and then you can fix it. By editing your file, you can fix it. And now it's telling us it's loaded, it's enabled, everything looks good. So we're going to start it. And when we start it, it should play our sound. One way to test your file is to copy it and the player and to load it in and see if it plays. Make the changes you need to make, reload your daemon again, check the status of your file again, start it again, and there you go. You see, we have that now. That's one way to test it. If the absolute address is not correct, when you try to run the status, systemd will notify you of the errors, and you can easily trace them from there. So now we have it working. Let's check the status again, and we have the green go light. That's all there is to our unit file in systemd, and you can go ahead and reboot your computer now, and that sound should play at the login screen. If something happens that you no longer want that service to run automatically, you can go ahead and disable that. Just simply disable it. And then if you check the status again, it tells us that it is disabled. Now it will not run after boot. If you wish to enable it again, simple as that, and it creates the symbolic link again. Now we could check the status on it one more time, and it is enabled again. If you want to stop the service, it's as simple as putting stop in there, check the status again, and we have a white dot because it is loaded, it's enabled, but it is not running. If you wish to start it again, go ahead and start it up, and you should hear the sound file playing again. This tells us that everything is running. We check the status again, and we have the activated and the green light. It's activated, and it ran, and it exited. So everything looks good. You can go ahead and close out, boot your system, and you should hear it play there at the login screen. Now, if we want to check here, we can go ahead and check the status on our login service files, and you can see here that our login tune service that we created is enabled. So that is all there is to it. Go ahead and reboot, and you will hear your sound. If you don't hear the sound and you need to edit it, again, you can edit easily through systemd by going to systemctl, edit full, and then the name of your service file. Enter that. Go ahead and tell your file to start after a different target, or if you didn't have sound, tell it to load the sound first. So put sound in here, sound.target. And if you need to adjust to the precise moment that the login screen arrives, use this executive start pre-bin sleep to put a certain number of seconds in there to adjust your file accordingly. Now, with a file like that, as long as you have the absolute path to an actual working audio file, then you should be good to go. So I hope you have enjoyed that little systemd tutorial. And if you did enjoy that, then give us a thumbs up or subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we produce a lot more of these little tutorials for you to see. Or you can join us on Twitter at HowToPam at Twitter, and we can talk with you there. So thanks for watching this How To Pam Let's Talk Linux, professional computing with free open source software, where we're helping FOSS users find the answers tutorial by How To Pam Let's Talk Linux.